Come on in, guys, because it's time for another episode of Outwatch, a Survivor Rewatch podcast where we week by week find old seasons of Survivor and recap, react, rewatch to those episodes. But today, we're in episode 2 of our special mini-series breaking down another highly touted CBS reality show. No, not Big Brother, not The Amazing Race, but the other member of the CBS reality Mount Rushmore, Kid Nation. This is a wild reality show where they make a bunch of kids go and start a town, and it's morally questionable. But we've had a lot of fun watching and breaking them down. So Adam has graciously volunteered to host us through this mini-series. And so, Adam, why don't you just go ahead and take it away?
Thanks, Alex. So, I'm Adam, taking over, going to be leading us through this little mini series here, like Alex said. But I am not doing it alone. We're gonna start with I never gave anybody a question to think about before we started.
Nope. Shooting from the hip.
So I guess here's my question. Let's go with this. So of the 4 showdowns we saw, which one was the most horrifying?
I mean, the answer is easy.
Yeah, I mean, there's an obvious answer, but just in case. So let's kick it over here to the person recording in the same room as me, Emily.
Hello.
Welcome to Outwatch.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
As always.
I tried to kick you off, but they wouldn't let me. So they tried to get rid of me after. Actually, is what happened.
Can't get rid of us.
What was the most horrifying showdown we saw this week?
Well, I'm so glad I get to answer first because I will tell you about it. It was pork and beans.
Yep.
They had, Jonathan, the host, described a huge skillet. It was a pen for pigs, but it was shaped like a skillet just for that kind of amusement. And there were a bunch of pigs in there, and they were all standing in like 6 inches of beans.
1,600 pounds of beans, I believe, is what they...
Yeah, like canned beans. And the kids had to jump in there and fish around for a can for their team. And it was unnecessary. There were elements that made no sense. This was the kind of thing where it was like, how far is too far to fit something into a theme? I will let others continue to talk about this because I know it's their answer too.
Hey, Scott, welcome to Outwatch.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going fantastic. What was the most horrifying showdown we saw this week?
Oh, I got to piggyback off of the pork and beans. Piggyback. I did not even mean to pun that. That was not intended, but it works out. Yeah, I was grossed out. That's like the only one that I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm not a fan of like, I personally don't enjoy like getting super gross and dirty. Like as a kid, that wasn't me. So watching that, I was not having a good time. So yeah,
on a scale of 1 to 10, how good is the pun, the joke, pork and beans in this showdown?
I'm gonna go with a solid 5.
That's pretty middle of the road.
Cop out.
Yep.
Let's kick it over to Jen. Jen, welcome to Outwatch.
Thank you.
What was the most horrifying showdown we saw this week?
Was the pork and beans where they got where they received fruit and vegetables as their reward?
I believe so. Hold on, let me check real quick.
That was part of also the horrifying part. Is that these children should just have been given fruit and vegetables from the very beginning. And It shouldn't be a reward to have nutrition.
Correct.
And then I would also like to make note of Greg nearly causing a concussion or brain injury as he dove headfirst into just 2 feet of beans.
Listen, this is just how much that guy cares.
A lot of grit there. A lot of grit.
Yeah. So...
Oh, and then you've already heard his voice, but Alex, welcome to Outwatch.
Hi.
What was the most horrifying showdown this week?
Yeah, it's got to be pork and beans, and it's not close. You know how in Survivor Cagayan there was the Outback Steakhouse reward?
Yes.
Bush's baked beans really missed an opportunity here.
Oh, that's fantastic. So this is Kid Nation. If you didn't listen to the last episode, I highly recommend you go back and listen to that because this show is crazy and we really just take a beat to digest how awful it is.
Much like those children digested those beans.
Yeah, exactly. If you are watching along at home, which I don't think any of us recommend you do, maybe you want to. Just I don't know what kind of person you are, but if you are watching at home, I think it is really therapeutic just to talk about it. So that's what we're here for today.
In fact, it may be the only way that you're able to watch it.
Yeah, it's probably. I recommend getting a group of people to watch it with, and then just digest it. Because if you're gonna watch it on your own, it's
or just let us do that.
Yeah, or don't.
Just leave it.
Listen, there's in these trying times, there are heroes on the front lines everywhere. Healthcare workers, delivery drivers, all of these essential services, and we here at Outwatch are honored to be doing the hard work of watching this show and talking about it so that you don't have to.
I don't want to be compared to any first responder.
Listen, we're all just doing what we can.
I am literally wearing PPE right now for you, the listener. So
we watched episodes 4, 5, 6, and 7. I grouped these together because we've kind of talked about in episode 1 about how this was really set up to be a social experiment. And then CBS came along and turned it into a game show. And no lawyers obviously got involved because it wouldn't have been made if that had happened. But episode 4, 5, 6, and 7 are really our strongest theme episodes. And that's being really generous with episode 6 and 7, I will say. But episode 4, we decide Kid Nation decides that it is their responsibility to tackle the subject of religion. We see religious strife when the council members mandate a religious service, though not any particular religion, just say that, I don't know, with some frequency, they're going to go to the chapel and have a religious service. Presumably the kids that are practicing different religions would talk about their religion. And in the showdown, they actually choose some religious texts over what is the other thing? Putt-putt. Yeah, they could have had putt-putt or a selection of religious texts, which we'll come back to that. Episode 5, we see the election of the town council. Basically, every town council member is going to be up for election, and anyone in their district can run against them. Laurel's green team decides to not run anyone against her because she's doing a great job. Anjay faces Olivia for the blue team, but Olivia doesn't get elected, so Anjay is still our council member. Taylor, who we've talked about at length in the previous episode, gets ousted. I'm going to say ousted by Zach for the yellow team, and Mike in what I would say is a pretty surprising loss, loses to Guylan for the red team, someone who we have seen maybe 2 times up at this point. So kind of comes out of nowhere to be a main character on the show.
Total blindside.
This is also, I believe, the compromise episode. There was allegedly, I've heard rumors of this episode, I've not heard any specifics, but there was apparently an episode of Kid Nation about politics where things got so heated and divisive that they decided not to air the episode, which I don't know how to respond to that because they aired the one about religion and then they aired this one. And I don't know where they're drawing their lines, but I guess it's good to know there are some. Anyway, episode 6, we see the town clean up the dump and fight each other in 1,600 pounds of beans and pigs, which we just talked about. And that's apparently supposed to talk about pollution and recycling.
They recycled the cans.
Yeah,
that
they recycled the
opened
cans
specifically for the challenge.
Yeah, I remember when they wasted 1,600 pounds of beans.
I wanted to bring that up so badly.
And then episode 7, the town council finds a treasure chest and needs to decide how to distribute the money to the town. And they decide to buy a bunch of instruments and baseball bats and footballs that the town can use together rather than give everybody money, because in their own words, they'll spend it on dumb stuff like candy, which is supposed to help us talk about wealth inequality, I guess.
And how are each of you spending your supplemental checks that we got from the government?
Much to the government's chagrin, we are putting it into our savings.
No, we're spending it on candy.
Okay, Jared.
Oh, so these are our 4 theme episodes, and I really think that's the way we need to kind of frame talking about them. There are previous episodes that definitely had strong themes in what they were trying to tackle. In episode 2, they decided to kill a chicken, and that was supposed to be the discussion of should we eat meat in our society. And we learned that they're not very good at doing this. So obviously talking about religion, politics, pollution and recycling and wealth inequality is probably not going to go super well. Let's start off with Emily. How did you feel about the town elections? Did you feel like it was a good idea that the town council members that lost their election went to the same district? Like when Mike lost, he was still a member of the red team and had to serve under the man who usurped him alongside the people who voted against him.
Yeah, I mean, that's how like general society works.
It's true.
Right. And I was interested to see the biggest thing. I'm going to redirect your question because this is what I have.
You didn't need to say you were going to redirect your question. You could have so smoothly made me seem like a great interviewer by just redirecting.
No, we have all the Just kidding. No, the thing that I was thinking about this entire section of the episode was that the town was very routinely displeased with the council, and they had a lot of complaints about them. And I was wondering, when they got new people in power, would that change, or would they just become displeased with who was in power afterward? We haven't seen that yet. I wonder if things will change. But you know, there's also the fact that the newly elected council members know what it's like now to be overseen by a council in this crazy world. So they have more perspective.
Yeah.
So I think it's good that they did re-elections because people were getting real mad.
Yeah. What was your favorite fight that happened in that episode?
For the council seats?
Yeah.
Obviously they're playing this up like crazy, but Taylor and the guy who got her seat,
Zach.
Yeah, Zach. She just like came up to him the next morning as he was ringing the bell to wake people up, and she just screamed like, "Shut up" or something. I was like, this is like, if people could do whatever they want and not act like adults, that's probably how things would go for our politics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that
it was a mess.
I thought the election like voting stuff was some of the most like compelling stuff of the series so far. Like I was thinking like, how could you format this show so that it ended like always ended in some sort of like, not necessarily a re-election necessarily, but like, yeah, I don't know, like some sort of situation where people can like, I don't know, some conditions have to be met where your team holds an election and then there's like an election potentially. I thought that was like good and like interesting to see.
So the big thing that really kept coming up during that episode that I thought was interesting, at least, was the idea of leader and follower. Whenever anybody was talking about whether they would make a good council member, or whenever someone was talking to the camera about whether someone else would make a good council member, they kept repeating this phrase, like, I think they're a good follower. Jen, how did we feel about this way of categorizing the world into leaders and followers?
Well, I think that's pretty black and white. But I think it like made it easier for them to like, because as children, like they do need some sort of like guide for them to make decisions, I guess, is what the production team was trying to help them distinguish the other children by like leader, follower. But I would say like they were, I don't know, I felt like they were saying more like they were calling everyone that was followers as like lazy. Like they were like unmotivated. But I think that that's not necessarily like the definition of a follower.
I guess that's more the point to the question is, what do we think they meant by leader and follower?
Yeah, I think they were yeah, I guess what I just said, but I felt like they were insinuating that anyone who was a follower was lazy or unmotivated or not doing their part to help create a better bonanza. And I don't think that's necessarily what usually necessarily followers are.
It seemed more like they were talking about the word like leader was what they used for like the loud kids, like the loud and like pushy kid, maybe not pushy, but like decisive ones, right? And it was like Guylan, who it turns out is like probably a pretty good leader, right? But is like more like soft spoken and like has less of the mic screaminess, you know, and he was being called a follower. So yeah, it's just like, you know, you think about those elementary like definitions of leadership, you know, it's like who's the loudest.
Well, I felt confused with that segment with Guylan because it was like he wasn't strong enough to use a shovel, so he was considered a follower. Was that what happened that you guys perceived as well?
In the next episode after he won the election.
Sorry.
Yeah. They were taking the garbage to their dump site and they were digging out the hole, and Guylan really wanted to get in there with a shovel, but wasn't all that effective because he's 11 years old and Greg's 15.
Right.
And yeah, there definitely seemed to be like the undertone of what they were talking about in the next episode, as far as like, was he really a leader? Can he do this? Is he physically strong enough? I think Kelly in episode 5, the election episode, summed it up really well in a way that I felt really, it helped me understand what they were coming from, where she said, look at George W. Bush. He's not smart at all, and he won the presidency twice.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
Which I think really shows that like they're really not looking for, I mean, like you said, they're not looking for necessarily someone who is a good leader in the way that us adults would talk about it, but in that sense of they're really loud or really bossy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it. That's about the extent of the thought on it. Was there anything else about the election that we found shocking or interesting? To me, it was just so, I thought it was great. Like it was I agree with Alex. It was a really interesting moment where the kids suddenly get to choose their leader, but also some of like, do we feel like any of the grudges were manufactured or anything like that? Like, do we feel like Taylor was forced out in any way, I guess? Scott, you're the one who claims that Greg was a plant. How scripted do you think that the elections were?
I didn't get the vibe that they were super scripted. Of course, I tend to like take things at face value besides the Greg thing. So I didn't get that vibe. I felt like, you know, for like the first 3 or 4 episodes. I feel like, most of the kids really were not happy with how the council was doing things. And it seemed like Taylor kind of caught a lot of the flack for that because of either, with the yellow team and doing the cooking and the dishes and stuff. It seems like, she caught a lot of flack for them not being very productive, I guess, in that regard. So I could easily see where somebody on the yellow team would not be happy with that. Now, as far as her reaction to it, again, I didn't get the vibe that she was like super pushed in that direction. But so that's open to interpretation, I guess.
This is definitely the most like Survivory that this got. Not only in the like presentation of cut rate Probst Jonathan, like, reading the ballots and like flipping them over, like doing his best Probst impression. But like in the yellow team, like Zach was talking about, effectively alliances, right? Where it's like, man, Taylor has like all the girls, so I just need to like flip one girl. It's like, the way that you manufacture a vote in Survivor. Yeah, I was like really intrigued by all that sort of stuff.
Does anyone feel sorry for Taylor?
I do.
You would.
do you want to talk about that? I think Emily does at least a little bit too. And the big thing for me, I don't think I necessarily felt sorry for Taylor until the actual votes were read. Because when the votes are being read, every time Zach gets a vote, everyone at Bonanza cheers. And every time Taylor gets a vote, no one cheers.
Yeah.
So I guess like, if you want to talk about that, Jen, you can go first.
Yeah.
Emily's saying she doesn't want to. So
No, Jen was going to talk about it.
Yeah, I think like it's just so sad. Like, as much as I think the biggest problem, well, there's so many problems with this show, but one of them is how much they make me dislike these children. And right, like she's the villain. And so there's times where I'm like saying mean things under my breath towards Taylor at the TV, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awful. And this episode actually was the one that made me look up Taylor. Now.
Yeah, I looked over and Jen was on like Taylor's Instagram.
Yeah, I've looked at her Instagram.
And like, I don't know. Yeah, I've already said this probably, I think, about Greg last time, but like, they're not developed. So much of what they're doing is based off of their homes or like how they grew up, and they're in this scenario with no supervision and no parents like, encouraging them or reprimanding them, to the point where like Alex's fix for Taylor was to lock her up. That was
yeah.
He was like, just put her in jail, which like,
well, if there's there has to be some sort of, was the conundrum when they were like, okay, Taylor, you have to do this job. And she was just like, no. Now you reach the societal impasse where it's like, what happens when a group in power says you have to do something and someone says no? There has to be some punishment, right? Or like, something to deter them from just saying no. So it's like, do they need a jail? Like, how do you stop this from just happening over and over again?
Yeah. And I think something that's strange is that I kept waiting during the voting for Jonathan to like, I don't know, like what you expect a teacher would do in that moment, which is like, guys, like, be nice. Like, Taylor has feelings too. Like, I don't know, like just what you imagine somebody trying to like care for that person's feelings instead of just letting them get roasted up there. But there's none of that. There's no monitoring.
Yeah, and if Jonathan really did his Probst research, he would know how much Probst loves the kids. All you have to do is watch one Survivor Live reunion show to know that. No way would our man Jeffrey Probst allow these kids to be hurt so badly. He would make Bonanza a better city. Jeffrey is the problem. Wait, Jonathan, not Jeffrey.
Make Bonanza great again.
So there's an interview that the AV Club did a while back, and I was just rereading it to make sure I got the people right. But they actually interview a few people on the show, but they interview Anjay too.
Like recently?
Yeah, it would have been in 2018, 2019.
Oh, okay.
He works for Microsoft now. He's fine. Don't worry about Anjay. But he's talking about kind of specifically this election cycle that we see here, because Olivia is really pitted against him as someone who hates Anjay. And I think that like this is really the problem with putting kids, and I think Jen really summed it up well too. This is really the problem with putting kids in reality TV shows, because in order to create a story, someone has to be the villain. There needs to be someone to root for, and there needs to be someone to root, against. And in the case of Taylor, like that really doesn't seem fair to make the villain a 10-year-old. And in the case of Anjay, it hardly seems fair to make it Olivia too. But Anjay talks about how Olivia and him are still friends. Like they still talk to each other. And he's like, if I ever get married, like she's invited to my wedding.
Aw.
Which is really cool. But it also shows how, especially in this case, how manipulative the show is in making us feel these certain ways about different people.
Mhm.
And especially children, which sucks. When in reality, it probably wasn't that bad. Like I'm sure there were moments, because I mean, I've worked at summer camp. I know what kids are like, but I don't know. I guess like, Emily, do you want to talk more to that, or do you feel like, which isn't to say that Kid Nation did an amazing job and we're just ripping apart for no reason. I want to be clear about that.
Yeah, no.
I just don't want to be an apologetic for Kid Nation.
Yeah,
sorry,
no,
you're giving me a look, and I just want to be like.
No, I think that's something that's in my head all the time when I'm watching this train wreck, is that I don't know how much of this is scripted. And I'm like Scott, in which I take things as face value, but I did some research when we did our first episode. And I just read a couple of things like, some things were just from people who had been on it. Yeah, some things were scripted, some like, just having them repeat something that they said, or maybe even leading them. And I think they really did that with Taylor. And I think just kind of like reiterating what everyone said too, like what Adam said, I think to make TV interesting, you want to have conflict. And what Jen said is you find yourself really despising a child, which is completely messed up, right? So I wonder, I haven't read anything from Taylor. I wonder how she feels about what happened, because I have a sense that I'm sure some of what we saw, she was being genuine, but I'm sure that they also just really crafted a narrative about her too. And she's cried a lot. Like even when she was on the council, they would go to their meetings and people would ask, or Jonathan always asks, are you happy with the job the council's doing? And it was always no. And people would complain about Taylor. And there were a couple times that she would just sit up there in front of everyone and start crying. And that's not okay. Even if she were being a total brat and like wasn't helping at all, to shame her in front of a group of her peers is probably not the best way to deal with that.
Yeah, I would agree. So I have no idea. I want to see the unaired episode about politics, because I just want to know so badly.
Well, it would be interesting. I mean, it wouldn't. No, none of this. But it would be interesting because of the time in which it was aired.
Right. Well, it's the height of the Iraq War.
Because we're already hearing kids saying some things about the president and politics in any of the other episodes.
Right.
I just cannot imagine like how that.
The problem is, I guess one of the problems with especially really young kids talking about politics is we have a tendency to parrot what our parents think and say. And so I'm just so curious what this is about, because how fully formed of an opinion can a child have about politics? An 11-year-old.
This aired
Yeah.
in 2007. Is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, 2007, height of the Iraq War. Obama's starting to make a name for himself, but he's not. We're about. We haven't started the primary yet for the Democrats. So with all that in mind about politics, how do we feel they covered religion?
Huh.
My favorite little one-tooth Alex had his shining moment in this episode
He's a great kid.
when he took the survey.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was good. So
Yeah.
Alex, he's 8 years old.
8 or 9, something like
8 or
that.
9,
Yeah.
something like that. But he wanted to know what religion everyone identified with in the town, and so he goes and takes a survey and just asks people, and then charts it. And it was actually it was fairly interesting how I guess it seemed like they got a pretty decent demographic of people. Like it would have been easy just to get a bunch of Christians and Jewish people on the show, but it seemed like they actually got more than just that. At least one Hindu kid.
Yeah. What was interesting was like how he was smart enough, or I don't know, maybe people like told him and he added it to his thing, but he would be like, you know, okay, are you Catholic or Protestant, or like,
Right.
you know,
Mhm.
are you progressive, or I'm blanking on the other like sect of Judaism that's more like traditional now.
Orthodox.
Yeah, Orthodox. Yeah.
Hasidic or whatever. I don't know if
Yeah.
he used the right word, but
I was like, dang, how does this kid know?
Yeah.
Right.
And he
Like-
had Sunni and Shiite.
he had the
for-
Sunni and the
Yeah,
Shia.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like really impressive.
Yeah, it was a very well done survey. It's 2007. Grading on a curve, how well do we think the show talked about religion?
I think that like this one was interesting to me as well. And like, I think like what I have, my blanket statement about this show and my experience with this show is that like, obviously it's deeply problematic and like a lot of it is really icky. But within that, there's like these moments where you're like really proud of these kids, you know, or like you're inspired by, like their choices or whatever. And like in the midst of, you know, the people being like ignorant or dismissive or trying to like, I don't know, standardize how they're going to like practice religion out here or whatever. There's like that scene where they have like a prayer service or whatever, or like around the fire, and there's the kids like doing the things that they would do in their own like religious practice, you know, and like at one point Zach like does a Hebrew prayer or whatever, which I thought was really cool and like really brave of this kid to like be in this group of kids who have probably like made it clear that most of them are like scared or uncomfortable by religions other than their own, you know. I thought that was a really cool moment. And then there were like some kids who talked about how that was like really meaningful to them too, and like caused them to see like the share, they didn't use these words, but the like shared humanity, right, like between these people who like practice different religions. So obviously it was like most of it was problematic, but within that there were these like shining moments where it's like, wow, that's actually like pretty cool. And that I'm like, yeah, these kids are like, that's a cool thing that they did. And like, I don't know, it makes you proud of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if you're asking me like how I thought the show like introduced it, I would say like very low grades.
Mhm.
Saying like, all right, we need religion. You guys want to do one service, or you know, you guys basically saying like you have to do it. How do you want to do it, kind of thing. And then like obviously that created a lot of issues around the town. But like Alex kind of said, I was kind of like I don't know, like in the midst of all the chaos, like like in these 4 episodes, especially, like I found myself like, wow, that kid's really awesome. Like there's so many good kids on the show, like, and like the prayer service, like the prayer circle around the fire, like that was just like a really uplifting moment because like the kids truly, I thought, handled it way better than like the adults who were kind of pushing them in that direction wanted them to handle it, I guess. So that's kind of those were my thoughts on it.
I would say in general, I'm really impressed with this episode. I mean, this is primetime CBS on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And they decided to let a bunch of kids talk about religion. I mean, not obviously in a very robust way, but they didn't just talk about one religion. They don't have, at least they don't show them, if they do have anyone who is a Muslim, but they do have a Quran as one of the holy books in the library, which is, I mean, 2007, we're in the middle of a war in Iraq, is a fairly, I don't know, in some senses, a fairly brave thing to do for CBS, I guess. I don't know if brave's the right word, but that's what I'm going to stick with.
It would have been totally feasible that they didn't.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It would have been like this is something that someone I'm sure had to fight for. Because I'm sure when someone was like, yeah, we're going to make these kids talk about religion. And then, you know, when they're like, yeah, we're going to give them a holy book of libraries or a library of holy books. Then they're like, okay, well, what books do we include? And someone was like, we need to include the Quran. And someone was like, well, yeah, but you can't show it on TV. Like, I'm sure that was a conversation that was had and then it got fought against. This episode has, this one has the most survivory kind of showdown, I think. At least for a team challenge, it has the steeplechase where they put the puzzle of a church steeple together because it's a religious episode. Get it? And then they crank it up and like lift it up so it's upright. And then as a result, if everyone gets it done in time, they get to choose between a putt-putt course in the middle of Bonanza or the Library of Holy Books, which I love. It's just so dumb. It's such a dumb. I love the rewards in these. Like they're so ridiculous.
Did you guys catch how he phrased it?
Yeah, it was holy books or holy one or hole in one.
Holy books versus hole in one.
Get out of here! I didn't even hear that.
That is how he phrased it. Like, I shit you not.
Oh my gosh!
That's incredible.
Like, oh my gosh.
Jonathan.
He also described it as spiritual salvation versus instant gratification, which was real good. That's honestly is one of my favorite parts of the show is when Jonathan describes the reward these little quippy ways.
Hey, did you guys know that the gold star is worth its weight in gold? Literally.
$20,000.
$20,000.
You know what I just thought of? Is there going to be a family visit?
Oh.
I mean, even Survivor does that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, is there going to be a bunch of parents here soon?
No, there won't be a family visit. I'm going to say that kind of tentatively because in a few episodes, I think it's closer to the end, they will get letters from home if they as a reward. And then I know for the last episode of filming, which I don't know how you do that for reality shows that last 3 days for an episode, but for the last like day of filming or something like that, the parents were allowed to come on set.
That seems
we don't
like
ever
a bad
see
idea.
them on TV, but we do know they're there. Which I think actually led to one of the start of a lawsuit for this show that never came to fruition.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Yeah,
but the lawsuit time out before you say that, the lawsuit was primarily about a parent saying that someone was essentially coaching their kid in what to say.
Oh god.
And so they were suing because they were saying this isn't people on a reality show, these are actors, and if they're actors then they need to be a part of the actors union, and they have different rights than if you're just a contestant on a reality show.
So they just wanted to make more money off their kid.
I'm not going to go that far. I mean, there's definitely a safety thing that could have fed into that, and just like to show you guys, we're going to do it this way. But
whose mom was that, guys? Was it Taylor, Mike?
Do you know who it was?
I don't know, actually. It didn't. I don't think. I think because the lawsuit was never actually like filed, we don't know. It's all kind of hearsay. Yeah, I have no idea. I do know. So in episode 7 that we watched, Devad burned her face with grease.
Yikes!
It was pretty minor.
Like, let's give the audience an idea of what's happened.
So
she's frying potatoes in a pan, and
She's
some grease came up and splattered her a bit on the face, which is not okay.
No.
But when you say that, I'm imagining her dunking herself in grease. That's not what happened.
I framed that poorly.
Just so everyone knows.
So that was, I believe, the second biggest injury of the season. The first biggest was a group of kids drank bleach.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Did they ever show that? Did they acknowledge that?
I don't remember. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. I feel like
That's just something I read.
Wait, when did that happen?
it hasn't happened yet. If they do show it, it hasn't happened yet. But I don't think it actually does make it into the show.
That seems like something to sweep under the rug if you're seeing it.
Yeah. So yeah, which what happened was in the speakeasy, the cleaning solution that they were using for the bottles apparently looks a lot like cream soda, and mistakes were made.
Mm-hmm.
But they just took like one drink.
Yeah, no one was seriously injured from it. I think the only I hate that I'm about to say it, phrase it this way. The only big character that I think it affected was DK.
By the way, what a legend DK is.
Let's talk about DK.
DK's awesome.
Let's go around real quick and we'll ask like who was our favorite person over these 4 episodes. Let's start with Scott. Who are your favorite people? And it's allowed to be DK.
Okay. DK's up there. I really like the Zach kid a lot. And I also found myself like empathizing with the Nathan kid as well. In episode 7, the one who won the gold star.
Homeschool kid.
Homeschool Nathan.
Yeah.
Jen. Who's your favorite kid in the whole in these 4 episodes?
Pick your favorite kid.
I wasn't ready to be asked second. I really liked Sophie until she did the whole like make a vomit bucket, put the coin at the bottom, and entertain me.
I love Sophie.
Yeah, so
but she's still up there.
Sophia's a member of the merchant class, and talk about what she did to get the kids to entertain her in town.
Yeah, so she decided that everybody was so desperate for money that she wanted to see if they were desperate enough to stick their hand in a bucket full of
It was mostly beans.
Yeah, beans, rotten fruits and vegetables, dirty water, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
oatmeal.
Oh, yeah. So just leftover food scraps. Mixed it together and said, "There's 50 cents in here. Stick your hand in, and whoever gets it takes it." And these poor little kids who are desperate for money are sticking their hands in this gunk.
Listen, who among us hasn't stuck their hands in gunk for 50 cents?
I guess my follow-up question, Jen, would be, do you think that life imitates art or that art imitates life?
Oh my goodness.
Gosh. Yeah. And then at the same time, I don't know if I'm any better than Sophie, and I probably would have done the same thing. So maybe I was just more disgusted at myself. So my final answer is Sophie.
Sophia. Alex, who's your favorite child? This podcast is real weird if you really dissect it, huh?
Loved the whole DK Guylan relationship dynamic. That was pretty sweet. Yeah, that whole episode when DK's about to leave is just like a real DK heavy episode. Really gets fleshed out. Yeah, and it was his character was really good and like almost like a tragic character, like the hero who dies to save the group, if not for Guylan bringing him back and letting him get his money. That was great. I also love Jared. Jared cracks me up. And like when he makes these necklaces from like burning like souvenir necklaces by using a magnifying glass. And then he goes to the shop and buys like a full on, I don't know, get up and twirls his and twirls his candy cane around. That was some high quality stuff.
Someone directed him to twirl the candy cane because it made him look more like a pimp. I just like we need to acknowledge that.
Absolutely.
Do you think that
like holy banana bread? Wasn't that what you said at one point?
That.
Do you think that Jared actually burned the inscriptions in those wooden necklaces?
Well, he used a burnt end of a stick as like a Sharpie.
Gotcha.
Oh, interesting.
Like as a pen. That was my interpretation of the craft.
I thought that he was like laser cutting the words with the magnifying glass, but it makes a lot more sense your way.
I thought that too, Alex.
I find it hard to believe that he created any of those.
But how else is it happening?
Happening right now.
Emily, who's your favorite child in these four?
Never too late.
It's happening right now. You fed me the answer, but I was going to say DK because I noted that right when they started actually paying attention to DK more and adding him to more scenes. But he just seems in these past episodes, he's very calm and he's very insightful. I don't remember the specifics, but I remember thinking kids would be in fights and stuff, and DK would come along and say something that really got to the heart of the matter. And he was just really kind with everybody. And he was expending all of his emotional and mental energy on these people that led him to want to leave. But he did it, and he won a gold star.
It's very like noble, right? Where he's like, his reason for leaving, which he ultimately doesn't act on, isn't like, I'm homesick or this is too hard. It's like, this is like a place that I don't want to be because there's like people who are more important to me. And this is like hard to have to deal with emotionally.
Right.
You know, it's like the best, reason we've seen.
So
also
I would
Colton
say
and his girlfriend. That's another.
That was a big deal.
Do you think they're still together?
Yes. They're married.
Let's come back to that because I do want to circle back to that. But focusing on DK for a second, I guess the list of things I have for DK, he encourages Guylan after Guylan has the issues with digging the hole. DK and Blaine, he's there. We need to give Blaine more credit for when he's there. Greg and Blaine. Blaine is Blaine of Greg and Blaine.
Okay. Genuinely didn't know who that was.
So DK and Blaine bring the town together to haul water when the thing is empty. And then there's the whole like kids are fighting in the middle of the town square, and DK yells at them and really says like helps focus them in on let's make the town better by being better ourselves. And then everyone is yelling at Taylor at the town hall, even though Taylor's not a council member. And DK is basically like, y'all are bullying Taylor. Let's not do that. And actually, there's some I've read in a few different places for recaps of the show that say that Taylor almost left that episode, but because of DK stayed. I don't know how true that is because it doesn't seem to me like that's the case in that episode, but I don't know. So DK really like stands out in that episode. But the other thing to remember about that episode is that's the episode where Taylor is really being shown as a villain. And so basically the whole episode is Taylor's a villain. Here's DK. Taylor's a villain. Here's DK. DK comes to the rescue of Taylor. Which feels really manipulative to me. At the end of the day, like I think DK really seems like a good guy, but I don't know. That episode in particular really like rubbed me the wrong way in terms of the way this show is produced, especially given the whole like kid thing that we've talked about in the earlier part of this episode. Not wanting to hate kids.
At the town meeting, like if you guys remember, Taylor was crying so hard when DK like stood up and said he wanted to leave. Like they panned over to Taylor and she was a mess.
Yeah.
And so I believe like she wanted to leave.
I mean, I would believe it. Yeah. Okay, I want to move on to showdowns, and then we'll go through like the town hall really quick, go through people leaving and the gold stars, unless there's something else that we want to talk about. Well, good. All right.
Carry on.
So we've talked about the showdowns a little bit already, two of them at least. The steeplechase was episode 4, the one about religion. They build a church steeple, the holy books versus the hole-in-one reward. I don't know if we need to talk about that anymore.
It was good. It was very Survivory. It was fun.
Yeah,
It was very Survivory.
Yeah, well, Survivory. It was a good challenge. Not a lot to dissect about it, honestly. The episode 5, episode 5 is called Viva la Revolution because that's what Zach yells after he gets elected. This one is the President Pinata ones. So everyone runs out into this field that has a bunch of pinatas hanging in it, and they break it open. And if there is a baseball card of a president, a U.S. president on it, they bring it back, and then the town council leader for that district has to put it in historical order. The 2 rewards for this one are it's a barbecue in which Jonathan calls it a political party.
Yeah, no, Jonathan.
I don't understand. Versus toothbrush, floss, and mouthwash, which you probably could have gotten a hint of because right before the showdown, a group of girls are brushing their teeth with baking soda and saying, "I really could use a toothbrush."
Yeah, they always make it real subtle.
I know.
How did they not give those kids toothbrushes?
Right?
That's a really interesting question.
Especially because as they were deliberating, Laurel was like, yeah, I have braces. I know a lot of people have braces here. We really need toothbrushes. Yeah, you do. You have a college education's amount of money in your mouth. So brush your teeth. I cannot believe they did not give them toothpaste.
I think they gave them baking soda. They said like this will have to be better than the baking soda.
Yeah.
So were they using their fingers?
That's the thing is the show or the episode right before it, they don't have a toothbrush. It's just their fingers and baking soda. That
has to be staged, right?
I can't believe it though, right?
Good grief.
That's not a thing. Like you get a toothbrush on Survivor, don't you? Like
I actually just looked it up. They it seems like they give them like a very simple toothbrush and like baking soda, but not like toothpaste.
Minty toothpaste.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which makes I don't know. This is one of those episodes that makes me really question how much is staged versus reality show. Because, I mean, like we said, it's very unlikely that these kids didn't have a toothbrush. But if that was the case, why wouldn't the town council pick a barbecue if they have a toothbrush already?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they probably didn't have toothbrushes.
So,
Yeah.
Gosh.
I don't know what's happening. Anyway, this show's awful. The next episode 6, is the cans hidden in the 1,600 pounds of beans with pigs.
Yeah, just move on.
Because it's pork and beans. I always thought it would be funnier if they did this episode and then the next, and then did the previous episode. So it looked like the barbecue was with the pigs that they had.
Let's not forget that they showed all these girls and stuff covered in meat, and then they were like, "No, we don't want it." Where did it go? Did we throw it away?
Great question.
I was upset by that.
Probably.
That's a really, I mean,
I literally thought to myself, was it plastic? Was it like the little kid toys where you have like fake hot dogs and stuff?
It went in the same place with the 1,600 pounds of baked beans.
And the
that's probably,
pizza party.
If they had chosen the barbecue party, they probably would have eaten the baked beans, but then they had a bunch of them left over. So they're like, well, we'll throw them in the pen with some pigs. This episode's reward is, it's up there as some of my favorite duality. It's dune buggies with unlimited gas versus fresh fruits and veggies. Which I guess is supposed to emphasize the choice between pollution versus not pollution.
Yeah, that one was a stretch too.
Yeah,
It's Mother Earth versus fossil fuels.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what he
right.
said.
That's right.
What did he say?
Mother Earth versus fossil
yes,
fuels.
Mother Earth. Yes.
I made it a point to write down all of them.
I so appreciate that.
I think that
I
was
usually
like,
write them down. I read it. Oh no, I did write down that over here. I missed it. I wrote it down in the wrong place.
I think that was like the camera crew going back to the main people and saying like, hey, like we just noticed a lot of the kids coming up and saying that all they have are potatoes. Do you know the next one, can we like maybe make I don't know, fruit, vegetables? Fruit? It's
Can we get Pharaoh a cucumber?
I picture him sending some intern to Walmart real quick.
I need all of your vegetables.
we got 40 kids. We've only been feeding them potatoes.
We realize
really
now
messed
that our
up.
mistake.
Right?
No. It's for TV. It's fine.
maybe it like
I'm
helped with
calling the police.
their cavities didn't happen because they're just eating potatoes.
That's the episode 2 where we see Taylor and Layla are put on dish duty and they decide to make fruit salad instead. This is the episode immediately after Zach wins the election. And Zach refuses to pay them, which, oh man, we got some drama coming. And then we never hear another word about it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, like that could be the punishment that is necessary. It's like, all right, you don't do your work, you don't get paid. That's fair.
And then in episode 7, we get the egg launch, which is where half of the team, or a majority of the district, is using a slingshot to launch a golden egg over a wall. The council leader is sitting on top of that wall and watching the egg get slinged over it, and then directing the people on the other side of the wall to catch the egg in a trampoline sort of thing. I don't know what it is.
It looked like a kiddie pool that was covered with like pantyhose.
Like pantyhose, something like that. And then whoever had the most eggs won. If they got 4 dozen eggs, then they got their reward, which was coin-operated laundry machines, or new clothes and Pioneer laundry machines, which did not take coins and required the kids to move a lever back and forth to wash them. They chose the new clothes and the Pioneer washing machine.
Good choice.
this is day 21, 22, something like that. So we're slightly over. I guess this is probably day 21. Yeah, because the root of all evil ends on day 22. So this is day 22. We are about halfway through. We're a little bit over halfway through the series at this point. They're there for 40 days. They've been there for 3 weeks, and they just got a fresh pair of clothes. Something feels wrong.
Yeah, it's wild.
Like something feels so wrong with this show.
This challenge was pretty Survivory too. I could see like a version of this. In fact, there have been like versions of this, where it's like slingshot this thing out to the other people on your tribe, and who, if you catch it, you get a point.
Did we like this challenge?
I liked it. I thought that the eggs. Was there a thematic reason why they were eggs, or was it just like ooh gross?
They were
eggs?
gold.
Yeah, I was gonna say the theme was that they were gold.
Hashtag money.
And they broke.
Yeah, from like a visual perspective, I wish that it was something that was like easier to see, like flying through the air or being
That's what I
caught.
thought too.
Like a bean. Do some like strategic communication. Thought it was a fun one.
I also had a hard time not thinking how wasteful it was.
Yeah.
But I think that's
you were thinking that the kids could be eating these eggs instead of the potatoes.
Yeah.
Nah.
I want to know, because they needed 4 dozen for the reward, which they got. I just want to know how many eggs they broke.
Yeah.
Definitely like 2 or 3 times that, right?
Probably.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Do you guys think that they actually do the time that they say that they're timing it, or do they add time that we don't know about? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I feel
Good
like there's
question.
times where they're like, this is going to take 5 minutes. I'm like, no way. This has been 15.
Yeah, I've wondered that, like a version of that too, with like how do they test these to know if this is going to be too easy or too hard, and like what the time frame to shoot for is.
Well,
Because it's
what you
kids.
don't see is the 40 kids that are off camera. They're just testing everything.
That's like a good point, because it seems like every challenge also, like, they finish right under the wire. Like, what if they don't actually have a time? Like, I don't know, maybe they add all the times in post. Like, they don't actually say you have to do this in 15 minutes. They just like go, and then they make
Yeah.
it such that they always finish with 3 seconds left.
Yeah. I actually had that thought today as we were finishing up, because I remembered one of the first challenges was the reward that they chose were more outhouses, because they only had one to begin with, which was disgusting. And I thought to myself, they try so hard with these themes. Would they have actually continued the outhouse over to a next episode if they didn't win that challenge, to give them another opportunity to win it? And so I just can't imagine some of these things that they've put up as rewards that they would just be like, all right, well, guess they aren't brushing their teeth for 40 days. You know what I mean?
Well, did they?
Guess they're going to share a toilet for 40 days.
That's a good point, because I think the time that they didn't win the reward, did they not win a reward?
It was like the second episode, right? Was the only time
Yeah,
they didn't
so-
actually win.
But we didn't know what was in there, so maybe it was the same thing.
Yeah.
No, they knew what was in there. It was
Did
it was the frozen pumps and the non-freezing pumps
You're right.
and the water slide. Well,
was
no,
hard
I
to
guess they
hide
knew about
the
the water
water
slide.
slide.
They didn't know about the pumps until after. I think that's a really interesting theory. I think it's wild to think, though, that they're like, well, we need to give them a washing machine, but we don't need to give them more than one water pump and one that doesn't freeze.
I don't know.
I think you're right though. That timing question it seems suspect to say the least.
It's like they always finish right at the buzzer.
Right.
The like eggs one is different in that like it's get this many things, you know, so it's not a time limit. It's like a counting thing.
Right, but they needed 48 eggs, and the Blue District collected 38.
Yeah. Wild.
I know that the next 2 episodes they do fail the task, but I don't remember off the top of my head what the rewards are.
Spoilers.
Sorry. I know you guys are so invested in this.
Our viewers are.
Okay. Anything else anyone want to say about the showdowns? Honestly, I like the showdowns. I think they're fun. I think the challenges are stupid, or the rewards are stupid, but like, I don't know. I think generally speaking, they're pretty fun things.
Yeah, besides pork and beans, I thought they're all pretty good.
Pork and beans is the epitome of something that would absolutely happen at a camp if someone had enough beans.
Yeah. I was thinking that too, of like, man, this is terrible. But then I did think, like, actually, I'm sure there's summer camps that have done this.
I described in the last episode a game that we played in a mud pit where we caught pigs. This is not that far removed from that game.
Somehow a bunch of loose beans, though, sounds so much worse than mud.
And also, the pigs were not necessary.
It was pork and beans. What do you mean it wasn't necessary?
They were looking for cans in the muck of beans. They didn't even touch the pigs.
I'll say the pigs were kind of like huddled in the corner, I feel like.
Yeah.
Well, it's also like they basically were like, it's not going to be gross enough for the kids to dig through beans. We need the kids to also dig through pig poop.
I didn't even think about that being in there too.
Right.
This just keeps getting worse.
Those pigs are over there in the corner like, guys, what's going on?
What's all these beans, or what are these small things running around for?
I'm into the beans, but
I feel like it also adds like, I don't know, I'm worried about the little ones, but I'm like an element of danger or unnecessary risk with these pigs like hurting the children, which maybe that isn't true. But I felt that way with the sheep as well. That like there's just moments within the show that I feel like we're just minutes away from an ER visit. Like with Taylor and the slamming doors, I was like, I was flinching. Like, fingers, like, her finger, like she is gonna get hurt. Like I was just like holding my breath, just waiting for something to get smashed.
Yeah.
Not great.
I want to read more about injuries on this show, but it's just a couple of big things is all I can
or the
find.
kids with the vegetable peeler.
Yeah, I hate that.
I hate that. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I know that kids like are fully capable of cutting fruits and vegetables, but like you teach them. You give them teaching knives and you work with them. And then they work up to peelers and the sharp knives, and it's just crazy.
Yeah. I have no idea how they got away with this. I really want to believe that we see these really small snippets of the kids cooking, and in reality, there's an adult doing most of it.
that has to be it, right? How are these kids like making enough food for them to like live off of every day?
Deal with it.
Deal with it.
If they don't like my corn and potatoes, then they're just gonna have to deal with it. That was my Taylor.
I'm a beauty queen. Which I did check it out. She did win a very big crown when she was little.
How does it compare to a Zeta Pledge crown?
I mean, it puts yours to shame.
Damn. Okay.
All right, let's run through the town halls and the gold stars real quick. Episode 4, we see Cody leave. He missed his girlfriend, who he's liked since 3rd grade. He's 9 years old. As a reminder, you go to 3rd grade around 9 years old, so it's not that long. In the life of a child, it's exceptionally long. We get a really emotional goodbye from this, and Morgan, who was the one who organized the prayer, the interfaith prayer, wins the gold star, and which is worth its weight in gold.
Literally.
Episode 5, no one leaves. I don't think anyone even attempts to leave. At least doesn't show it. The gold star finally goes to Greg, and we get the shortest phone call home.
Oh, it got cut for time, right? It was in the
end credit.
Yeah, the credit sequence.
I have a theory about this. I think we're sort of left to interpret, and we've said this a few times, that we're not too sure about Greg's home life. I think that if they showed too much of that phone call, we would have learned that his mother was a very loving person.
Yeah, I got that from the 2 seconds I saw. I was like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I misread that they're actually great. And
right.
He's just a teenager.
Yeah. So part of me wonders how much of it was cut because of how much of the election and other stuff that they extend in order to cut his phone call, because it kind of messed with the image they were trying to portray. Which is awful, but I wouldn't put it past this show at this point.
Yeah, I just assumed that with the election taking up so much time that they just cut it for time.
And it could just be that. We get the election. Like you said, Zach beats Taylor. Guylan beats Mike, and then Laurel and Anjay stay in their respective seats. I feel like we've pretty much talked about that to death. Episode 6, the trash one, the town hall. This is the one where everyone's yelling at Taylor and DK stands up. We almost get a DK exit, and by extension a Taylor exit, but Guylan convinces him to stay, and DK gets the gold star because he's been crushing it. And then episode 7, no one leaves. Right? Yeah, no one leaves. Nathan apparently almost leaves, though. He says for half a second he considered leaving. But Nathan goes on to win the gold star. Nathan was the homeschooled kid. We haven't really talked about him at all, and I don't think we need to go too in depth into him because we've been watching this town for 20 days, and we just now met Nathan, who has apparently been bullied by Greg this whole time, and we haven't seen it at all. And then Greg apologizes. So I don't believe that for a second, but that's just me.
Yeah, I'm I still don't understand why he won.
He's a hard worker.
Yeah, but wasn't it Pharaoh? Was that the other kid's name?
Yeah, but Pharaoh just started working hard when he found out there was money on the line. So
you hate to see that.
You hate to see it.
Yeah.
Is that the kid that his mom needs the money?
Yeah. So that's actually a really interesting thing about this episode is in the episode where we're talking about the root of all evil, money, we get, I think, more of those my family could use this money kind of things than we've gotten in previous episodes. Which I don't know how much that has to do with, people need money and it was thematically relevant, or if it just was the only drama they could drum up for this episode. But, yeah. So Pharaoh, and then Devad, who has been selling goods at a snack shack for a while, has been campaigning to get a gold star herself. even going so far as to nominate herself. Doesn't get it, and we end the episode with a Greg-esque supervillain talking point that they will see how hard I work.
You'll all see.
I guess anything in particular that we haven't covered already that we want to talk about with the town halls?
Glad that Greg got his. He had a rough start, but he's really come around. Happy that he got his star, which is worth its weight in gold. Literally.
I'm sorry, Scott, you go.
Oh, you go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to bring up Cody again when he went home because of his girlfriend.
What about it?
I was deciding on if I wanted to say what I had been saying all along about Cody. Cody would throughout the series or episodes say I just really miss my friends, and I would say, Cody, you don't have any friends.
So mean.
I know. I'm not. This is what the show does.
He's 9.
Cody has a girlfriend.
And then Cody has a girlfriend. Okay. And she had wrote him a letter with her little school picture, wallet size school picture in there. And he is holding it and he is crying over her. And it is hilarious.
That's the third grade 2007 equivalent to the "you up" text.
You up?
Yeah, and then I also want to bring up that episode, it was snowing. It actually started snowing, and I just wanted to reiterate how this should have been thought out. What season they chose to do a show where kids are living in the elements.
Maybe just don't put them in the desert. I don't know.
Yeah, there's that.
There aren't any cool ghost towns in the mountains though. I have one final question, and then we can call it, unless there's something someone is desperate to talk about. And that's, there's a running theme throughout this. All 7 episodes really, with the saloon, where the kids are really mimicking drinking, and not just I'll have a root beer and then drinking that root beer, but going so far as to doing shots of soda and things like that. I guess, how do we feel about this? Do we feel like the producers probably shouldn't have let that happen? Is it harmless?
I mean, I feel like, didn't you do this as a kid?
Not Jaeger bombs.
Okay, you're right. Greg did do a Jaeger bomb at one point. True. I didn't do Jaeger bombs. But I don't know. You would pretend that you're, taking a shot of Coca-Cola or whatever. Mm-hmm. Also, it's inevitable when you say and here's the saloon, right? Where they're going to be
with
I'm gonna go drink
beer.
I'm gonna go drink my sorrows away. Wasn't that a thing that Cody did? Yeah. He was like, I need to get my mind off of this, and goes to the saloon and orders a root beer. Incredible stuff.
With sad harmonica music in the background.
I don't know. I get where you're coming from, Alex. It just it's every time I see it, it just makes me uncomfortable.
It's cringy, but it's also probably stuff that you or I did as a
right.
But it just doesn't make it any less cringy.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's also what they see on TV and movies and stuff.
Right.
Which is basically the theme of the show.
Oh. I don't know. It just makes me feel weird, but also I definitely did that as a kid. So
I did not.
You were so straight-laced. So
I don't even I can't remember doing anything like that.
In the 8th grade, I played Coke Pong But it was like warm and flat. So it was
Ew.
terrible.
See, when I was in high school, we played diluted Diet Coke Pong for the same reason. And that was the reason, was there's now like a lot more incentive to win because you don't want to drink the diluted Diet Coke because it's disgusting.
Oh,
Fair.
All right. Is there any last thing that we want to talk about before we call it for episodes 4, 5, 6, and 7 of Kid Nation?
I think a thought to ponder is what kind of waivers did these parents sign? Because they had to be short of death. Right?
Yeah.
I will say, so every kid is paid $5,000 to be on the show. I don't think that the parents have access to that money, but I also don't think that. I mean, I don't know how hard it would be for the parents to get access to that money, I guess. Not to say that anyone put their kid on the show because they're like, oh, $5,000, heck yeah. But it makes kind of a gross incentive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we have one final question as we sign off here. And that question is really simple. Emily, do you want to leave Bonanza?
Oh my gosh. If I've gotten a gold star, then I'm out. If I haven't.
That's a great point, actually.
So I will also say, I don't know if they told the kids this, but there's a chance that you can win a $50,000 gold star in the last episode.
Dang.
ooh.
That better go to Laurel.
What a legend.
Gold star.
Can she get one if she's on the council?
Yeah, I don't think the council votes on it.
Well, I mean a regular gold star, because that's another question I have. Why would you run for council if that means you cannot get a gold star?
More screen time.
I don't know, honestly. I'm trying to remember.
That's where Zach's just sitting pretty.
Yeah.
He got his gold star. He's now a leader.
True.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on from that question, I guess. Scott, do you want to leave Bonanza?
Oh no, I'm here. I am in this for the long haul.
Jen, are you staying in Bonanza?
Yeah. As one of the little girls would say, I'm a rough and tough cowgirl.
Oh,
I don't remember her
Alex,
name.
do you want to stay in Bonanza?
Yeah, now that we've got toothbrushes and vegetables, I'm in.
Matching plaid shirts.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's all we got for you guys on Outwatch, watching Kid Nation.
Yes.
Until next time. Next time on Kid Nation.
Deal with it. That's how I ended it last time. I will
Perfect.
end it that way again.